All right, guys. What's up, boys and girls? Happy Father's Day. Let's get the show on the road. 20 seconds.
PowerPoint presentation.
What is that?
It was the backup. For
Gotcha.
some reason, the backup was up in the background.
This is Armed American.
I'll close it.
If they want to take my guns, they're going to have to bring a station wagon and a whole lot of friends, because I'm not giving them anything.
From the Car Firearms Group studio at the Patriot Mobile Communication Center on the Sig Sauer Platinum microphone. Proudly presented to you by the National Rifle Association. National Rifle Association. Here is your host of Armed American Radio, the loudest conservative voice in America fighting for your rights, Mark Walters.
Happy Father's Day, gents. Happy Father's Day. How the heck are you? I hope you're having a good day, a safe day, enjoying time with your friends and family as you should be. Mark Walters here in the Car Firearms Group studios with you, filling your prescription for freedom today and every day, 6 days a week. And today we're in front of the Sig Sauer Powerful and Platinum microphone. And of course, it's all being brought to you by the National Rifle Association, better known as the NRA. If you're watching us on your screens, Greg's going to tell you how to do that in a minute. I have that live link. Join the NRA today by clicking the link. We will keep that up for you. And Patriot Mobile microphones, Patriot Mobile Command Center lit up, Sig Sauer mic. Greg, I think that does it all. Happy Father's Day to everybody out there. We're on Facebook Live.com. You just go to facebook.com/Armed American Radio. Greg, you can tell them where to go to get the rest of it. We'll move on with our guest, Alan Gottlieb.
Yep, sure. You covered everything except for where to watch us over on YouTube and Rumble. So just search for Armed American Radio with Mark Walters over there. On X, we're at AAR Mark. Also over on armedamericanradio.org and .com. On that, click that menu icon and select your watch live option or your listen live option. To join our live chat, just download Telegram, create you a profile, and search for Armed American Radio Conversations.
All right, we just cracked a sugar-free Red Bull.
Don't
Let's
open
get
that
this-
off the air.
Don't open that off the air. Let's do that while we're on the air. Don't take a sip and don't put the air conditioner on, right? That's how it goes. Alan
There we
Gottlieb,
go.
founder of the Second Amendment Foundation. Happy Father's Day, my friend, and welcome to the program. Thank you for being here on Father's Day, by the way. We appreciate it very much.
My pleasure, and happy Father's Day to you, too.
Alan, do you feel like everybody's father sometimes when we, because you are the king of all of this. And I look at you as a father figure, and sometimes I feel, because my listeners feel that way. They miss you when you're not on the show. And I just want to let you know that you're kind of like the father of this movement, and it just fits you really well. So an extra special Father's Day for you from a lot of different fronts for everything that you do, my friend.
Well, thank you. All that says to me is that I'm getting long in the tooth. I've been around here a little too long, and maybe it's time to hang up the spurs. But it's been fun over all these years, the 50-plus years now that I've had in the gun rights movement, mentoring people and helping the movement grow. And it's been very rewarding to me.
50 years, Alan. Did you ever think you'd say that? 50 years. It's been a remarkable run. And ladies and gentlemen, we've often said this, and I'll repeat it now if you're new to the program. We do have a lot of new affiliates. Welcome to you all today. Thanks for being here. We'll shout you out in a little bit. But, Alan, better than 75, 85, maybe even 90% of pro-gun court victories in this country over those 50 years have been won by Second Amendment Foundation or cases where the Second Amendment Foundation is actively involved. That's quite a remarkable stretch, my friend.
It really is, but a lot of the unseen and unknown things that the Foundation and the Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms, which I'm the chairman of, have been engaged in over the last 50 years, have been very productive for gun rights and the gun rights movement. And a lot of it goes under the radar, and we can't really even talk about it.
Yeah, but we know it's happening. So we just want to commend you on that. So Father's Day is a befitting day to do that because you are kind of like everybody's father when it comes to these court victories. Let's go to court. Let's talk Illinois. Good heavens. I guess we have to, Snopes is in the rearview mirror, except, and Snopes, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who might not know, that's the Fourth Circuit assault weapons ban case that the Supreme Court refused to grant cert on over a week ago. And that's in the rearview mirror, Alan. We're pragmatists. We got to move on with that. But the dissent is being referred to in DOJ amicus briefs, very strong briefs. And I want to talk a little bit about that with you because maybe I'm wrong, but I think this might be the next case that Kavanaugh was pointing to that's going to be before the court that they're going to hear within the next term or two. Could I be right about that?
You could. Remember, Mark, last week on the show I said it was going to be a very busy week.
Yeah.
legally for the Second Amendment Foundation, and it sure has. And one of the things is filing our brief with the appeals court in the Illinois against the Illinois assault weapons ban and magazine capacity ban. We won this case twice at the lower court level, once when we got our preliminary injunction, and then once when we won on the merits. And now the state of Illinois, of course, is appealing it, and we're at the appeals court level. And it was really great to see that brief filed in that case this week. And, of course, as you referenced, the Department of Justice, has filed an amicus brief on our behalf. And, again, it shows why it was so important to have Donald Trump in the White House.
And that's a strong brief. I want to read just a couple portions of it. I'm going to scroll through it quickly, ladies and gentlemen, because Stephen Gutowski over at The Reload has done a really powerful deep dive that we're going to get into later in the show today. I don't have time to go into it with Mr. Gottlieb, but he touches on what the administration is doing at the federal level versus what they're doing at the state level. They've been very strong on Second Amendment issues at the state level, but maybe not so much at the federal level. There's been a little bit of a disconnect there. We'll talk about that later. But the brief here focuses on really three things, and they lay it out very well. Number one, the act violates the Second Amendment by banning AR-15s and other firearms that are in common use by law-abiding citizens for lawful reasons. Many of the banned firearms are arms under the Second Amendment. That's their first premise there. The second premise there, and they have a couple bullet points underneath that, but the second premise goes to, let me get to that, text, history, and precedent confirm that a legislature may not ban a class of weapons on the ground that the weapons are quote-unquote militaristic. That's the Beavis case, Alan, I believe you were referring to. And third, let me scroll down here as we move through this because there's about 30, 40 pages here. And number three is the act violates the Second Amendment by banning the possession of magazines and other firearm attachments that are in common use by law-abiding citizens for lawful reasons. And I want to point out, the DOJ did not have to do this, Alan.
No, they didn't, but it was the right thing to do, and the president supports, the Second Amendment and gun rights in general. And this is the difference of having Donald Trump in the White House. SAF is litigating, by the way, 7 cases around the country still dealing with assault and bans. Mm-hmm. So one of these 7 cases is maybe the one, like you mentioned, and maybe one of the other 6. But we're not giving up on this, and we're going to get one of these cases before the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court, has definitely signaled that eventually they're going to hear one of these cases.
Now, this brief is asking the circuit to reverse itself. What are the odds?
Well, in this case, we've won. I'm not sure I'm following what you're saying. We've won this case at the lower court level.
Right.
And it's the state of Illinois that's, quote unquote, appealing it. So there is no, the reverse will come up other cases they've had before dealing with, these issues.
Okay, I'm looking at a different note here. Let me apologize for that. This case is not. So what happens, let's just go through the process here, okay? If we win here, the state of Illinois will likely do what?
Appeal, and that's what would get us to the Supreme Court, because if we win, we don't get the right to appeal because we won the case. So as we had done twice at the lower court level. So again, we need Illinois to appeal, just like we needed Chicago to appeal in the McDonald versus Chicago, just like we needed D.C. to appeal in the Heller case to get to the court. Because we win at the appeals court level, we don't get to take it to the Supreme Court unless the other side files the writ.
Now, you remember the Wren v. D.C. case. Will Illinois, knowing what Kavanaugh said in his, I guess we'll call it an opinion, in the refusal to grant cert in the Fourth Circuit case, will Illinois be under pressure not to seek cert in this for fear that they're going to lose this at the Supreme Court, which is basically what happened in the Wren v. D.C. case a few years ago? Could that happen?
It could happen, but I don't see it happening. I don't think there's any way in the world that Illinois will not appeal if they lose at the appeals court level. And in addition to that, a lot of the people on the gun prohibition side of this, the gun prohibition lobby in general, I mean, this is the kind of case banning guns that they're not going to give up on. There's too many other pieces of litigation going on. We've got 7 total cases on assault magazine bans going on around the country right now. They know one of these is going to get there eventually, no matter what. They're not going to give up. So this is, as you stated earlier on, this could be the case the Supreme Court does end up eventually hearing.
Is that why the DOJ did what it did in this case? Because they might feel the same way?
Yeah, I think they do. And of course, the Department of Justice has pretty much said that they're going to hold states accountable when they violate people's Second Amendment rights. They're not going to let them off the hook. And this amicus brief on our behalf shows that.
And it's very strong. Ladies and gentlemen, I would highly recommend you read it. You can visit, we'll send somebody, you can read Cam Edwards' piece on it over at Bearing Arms. He's got a link to the brief. We'll send Cam a solid over there. And we wish him a happy Father's Day today as well. We talked to him earlier today. So check it out at Bearing Arms. You can link to it. It's linked in Cam's piece. You won't miss it at bearingarms.com. Make sure you do that. Read this brief. It's powerful. And guys, this could be the one. Snopes is in the rearview mirror. It's done. It's history. We got to move on from here. When we come back, there's some shenanigans going on in New Jersey. And yet again, the Second Amendment Foundation and the CCRKBA trying to put a stop to it. We'll be back with Alan Gottlieb. One more segment. That's what I get when I have too many windows open. I should know better than that. Did that weird backup kick in go out over the air?
Yeah, the first little clip part did. I got to it before it got too far in.
That was pretty weird.
Huh?
That was weird.
It was because I had it up earlier looking at the third hour in the playlist, and I minimized it, and it for some reason it kicked off the first hour in that playlist. It was my bad. I should have unloaded the playlist.
Guys, you got to hear it here first.
Stuff happens.
Stuff happens. Guys, if you're watching on X, repost us, share us on Facebook. Get it out there if you would. We appreciate it.
Those haters over at Facebook.
All social media haters.
Yeah. Can't stand them.
They leave much to be desired, that's for sure.
Oh, man.
My loss on that case did not help matters at all.
No?
Gave them blanket immunity. But what it did was it paved the way for legislation, so that's where we're working. That's what we're going to do.
Yeah,
next.
We'll see.
Step number 1 in an ongoing process, ladies and gentlemen. It never ends. If you're wrong, stand up for yourself. I did it. You can do it. Go to New Jersey next here. Have enough time to get to Alan on the Austria school shooting. He's got a release on that as well. Don't turn the AC on. I'm not ready to go live. Wait till you go live.
They get this last little 30 seconds of AC.
I tell you. We had a downpour here yesterday. I was driving yesterday back from Costco. And I hit a downpour that I have not seen the likes of since tropical depressions in Florida. It was unbelievable. So
We haven't had any of that.
That must have been what come out of San Antonio up this way, but it was just biblical. I hadn't seen rain like that in 25 years. It was
There we
something.
go.
The following segment of Armed American Radio is proudly being brought to you by the National Rifle Association. Help us defend freedom by visiting nra.org/AAR and join today. Welcome back to the show. Yeah, welcome back to the show, ladies and gentlemen. National Rifle Association is bringing this program to you today and every day, 6 days a week. Look, if you let your membership lapse, rejoin, okay? I did. This is the time we have to look forward, ladies and gentlemen. The NRA is doing all of the right things, making all of the right moves. I know a lot of you were very dismayed, as I was, over the last several years with NRA management. That crop is out. Rejoin us and help us move forward. NRA.org/AAR. If you're watching on your screens, you can just click that link that I'm pointing to right there. Join NRA. That is a live link. Please do that during a break, and welcome back. Mark Walters in the Car Firearms Group studios with you. 6 Hour Mike here at the Patriot Mobile Command Center, all being brought to you by the National Rifle Association. And don't forget, you can find all of our great partners over at armedamericanradio.com. We'll talk about more of them later. Let's go back to the great Alan Gottlieb, founder of the Second Amendment Foundation. Alan, welcome back. Let's do a hop, skip, and a jump over to New Jersey, rabidly gun-hating state. But there are positive developments. New Jersey's a strange place. I have a gut feeling that you're going to see the New Jersey governor's mansion go red. So I'm feeling a little comfortable about what's happening in the state of New Jersey right now. I think they're sick and tired of the shenanigans being played. They're over Murphy. They're over the years of him. And I think the Second Amendment's going to play a major role there as well. But the CCR-KBA is commending Englishtown, New Jersey, for adopting a resolution that will provide financial relief to concealed carry holders. Guys, what happened post-Bruin? New Jersey enacted a law that raised the permitting fees for a permit to carry to $200. And the permit, the $200 permit, is only good for 2 years. And the cost to carry is an example of the quote-unquote exorbitant fees the Supreme Court said would be impermissible even under a shall-issue permitting system. Of that fee, $150 is appropriated to the individual municipality that you live in if you live in New Jersey and you're listening to this show. Englishtown resolved that a rebate program shall be instituted, quoting from the CCR-KBA's latest release, refunding $150 of the money collected back to the applicants. The remaining $50 goes to the state of New Jersey. Alan.
Yeah, well, I really want to thank one of our directors who lives in New Jersey, John Petrolino, who basically was on top of this and helped facilitate all this on behalf of the Citizens Committee. And, of course, it's important to thank the mayor there, Daniel Francisco, for bringing this up in the city council, for approving and supporting it, so that now people who live in that part of New Jersey only have to pay $50 instead of $200. To me, the importance of this is that it sets a signal to other cities in New Jersey that they let them know they don't have to put up with an anti-gun state government that's going to infringe on Second Amendment rights, and they too can opt out of this and show their willingness not to rip off gun owners in the state of New Jersey. So we're hoping to spread this from city to city throughout that state. And if it's working in New Jersey, it could work for us in some other states that have post-Bruin done the same kind of stuff. One of the things the Second Foundation is working on, I can't name the city right now, but a lawsuit in California where it's now costing $2,000 to be able to get a permit to carry a gun. And so that'll be coming up in the next week or so. The staff will be filing that one. And this is one of our pushbacks nationwide to ensure gun rights aren't destroyed by taxing it to death.
Alan, did I hear you right? Did I hear you say $2,000 in one California town?
Yes.
Wow.
So one California county, more than the town. So you'll be hearing probably from me on that in the next week or so when that suit actually gets filed.
Could this New Jersey case be the snowball effect here that brings other municipalities to the table? Because I get the feeling that they've been threatened, that they live in fear, and that when this snowball finally gets rolled downhill, it might begin to pick up some steam, and some of these other municipalities begin to grow a pair, quite frankly. Could that happen?
Yeah, that's what our hope is. That I think we'll find more small cities and townships in New Jersey willing to do that. And there's nothing the state can do about it because the state still gets their $50, but the part appropriated for the city just goes bye-bye, which is the $150 part of it. So it reduces by 3/4 the cost of having a permit to carry in the state of New Jersey. So the Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep Arms will be leading this charge in cities all across New Jersey.
And I found it interesting that while it instituted the $200 fee, it never said what the municipality had to do with the fee. So rebating it back is legit. And hats off to Englishtown Mayor Daniel Francisco. He made this statement. It's important here. What's important here is that we try to protect people's rights. And he said when he was drawing an analog, he said, I think if Englishtown passed the law that said every time you came to tell me your opinion about something, I charged you $150 and you didn't pay that fee, you would not be allowed to speak before us. That would be the most unconstitutional and abusive policy I could possibly imagine. And that is exactly what's happening here. This is a poll tax for guns, ladies and gentlemen. So if you live in Jersey, what's your advice to people who live in New Jersey? Who do they contact? Their local municipality? Do they go to the state?
Yeah, well, they can't go to the state because the state is not part of this. But they can go to their mayor, their city, their town council members, and ask them to copy the resolution from Englishtown and introduce it and pass it in their jurisdiction.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, look what Englishtown did, Mr. Mayor. Can we do the same thing here? Now, clearly, not everybody's going to be gun friendly over there, but at the same time, make your voice heard. That's what this is all about. You've got to make your voice heard. Alan, let's shift gears because I want to go to the Austria school shooting. You know, how many times do we hear, this is unique to America, it only happens in America? And we know that's not true. It just doesn't get a lot of press coverage. John Lott, who will be here in the next half hour, has been pushing this issue for many, many years and has brought up per capita numbers. He's brought up school shootings around the world that just don't get major American media attention. But you've got a pretty strong press release out that made it very clear that this just blows the gun control argument in the United States right out of the water.
Yeah, this was a Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms release about the school shooting in Graz, Austria, that shows that despite all the laws that Austria has, in fact, you can't stop school shootings. And it also lets the American public know that these things are not just happening in the United States. They do happen in major gun control countries. And so it shatters and explodes the gun control myth that if you ban guns or you put in strict controls of licensing, et cetera, that quote-unquote bad guys aren't going to commit bad acts. All it does is disarm the rest of us. It makes their job easier. So, yeah, it was really great. We got a lot of press on it, too.
Yeah.
But, of course, a lot of the trip places, like ABC, CBS, NBC in particular, those kind of networks, ignore our news releases on this. They only want to promote school shootings that happen in the United States. They don't want to talk about how countries with strict gun control laws have the same problems.
Yeah, everything that the anti-gun lobby wants for every state and municipality in the nation as a whole, Austria had, and you made it very clear in the release, and I'm going to quote Alan here, ladies and gentlemen. What we've ascertained from various reports is that the alleged shooter used 2 legally obtained firearms,
30.
and gun ownership in Austria requires registration. Purchases involve a 3-day waiting period, and handguns may be purchased only by people over age 21 who hold those licenses. This tells us that the gun prohibition lobby is absolutely wrong when it argues that waiting periods and gun registrations will prevent such tragedies. And that came from you, the veteran gun rights advocate. Alan, you're amazing. Thank you for everything you do. We've already come to the close of this half hour. You know how time flies here. Happy Father's Day to you, my friend, not just on behalf of me and my family, but on behalf of millions of listeners around the nation who look to you to help us get things done in courtrooms across America. Ladies and gentlemen, Alan, thank you for being here. Happy Father's Day again, brother. Ladies and gentlemen, you can join us at saf.org. Become a member, donate $5, $50, $5,000, whatever you can, and help us fund these lawsuits that are winning back your gun rights one case at a time. We'll be back with Dr. John Lott. Oh, this is funny because I almost dropped the F-bomb there by accident.
Oh?
Yeah.
you happen to drill anything?
It would have been natural for me to say it in that sentence if I were sitting talking with you, and it almost came out. I said, ooh. Stay on that switch. You never know. Hey, let's put some AC on. How about it?
Yeah, there you go.
feel like playing this beautiful Gibson SG sitting behind me right now, too, because everything's on. The amp lights are lit. I can hear the buzz of the amplifiers humming in my head. Buzzing from the amplifiers ringing in your head, like Bob Seger song.
Yep.
Turn the page, right?
Yep.
Smoked the day's last cigarette, remembering what she said.
That's a good bar song.
The great tune. I lived in Ann Arbor, Michigan when I was 9 until I was 15 during the height. Well, not the height. Long before anybody knew who he was. We knew because he used to play little local clubs around the University of Michigan. He went to Pioneer High School. And if I had stayed there any longer, I would have gone to Huron High School my freshman year, but we moved. And he was the first concert I ever saw. He played a local field house, a local hockey rink. And a rock band named by the name of Stars opened up for him. Ladies and gentlemen, you guys remember Stars? A long time ago. They had a couple hits out. But that was the first concert I saw was Seger. And it was at Yost Fieldhouse in Ypsilanti, Michigan. Those of you who live in Michigan, Ypsi, you know what I'm talking about. We were listening to him when we were kids before we all knew who he was. He didn't really hit it big and outside the Midwest and Michigan until the Night Moves album came out.
John on hold.
John's got a piece up about Chris Murphy. Honest to God, man, this guy lies his ass off, a gaslighting windbag on Twitter, X, formerly known as Twitter, every single day. In the lies that him and Schumer were telling.
You're shocked. They're Democrats.
Just the balls it takes to stand up and look at cameras and say what they say, knowing it's not true. These are evil people, ladies and gentlemen. Evil people.
Hey, it's Andy Hoosier, the voice of reason on KQAM, Wichita's Big Talker, and you're tuned into the Armed American Radio Network. Now let's get back to the man himself, Mark Walters.
That's Andy Hoosier, KQAM, Wichita's Big Talker, Wichita's favorite son. You got a good one there, Wichita. KQAM, one of our great affiliates, long-standing affiliates. We love you in Wichita. We've been there. We've broadcasted from there. It's a wonderful place. You guys have it going on. Kansas has great gun laws. Keep up the fight out there. We love you guys, and we love Andy Hoosier. Welcome back inside. Car Firearms Group Studios lit up for you. The Sig Sauer mic is on fire. And, of course, we're coming to you from the Patriot Mobile Ranch. It's all being brought to you by the National Rifle Association. Again, if you're watching, that link that you see on screen right below me is a live link. You can click that link, and you can go over there and join the NRA. It's $35. Save a few bucks. You can join for 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, life. Just join. Help us move forward. Help this organization move in the direction it should have been moving in over the last 10 years and didn't because it was stymied by bad management. Those days are gone, and we need your support. And you can find all of our partners. Goat Guns. Don't forget your Goat Guns. It's not too late. Just because you missed it for Father's Day doesn't mean Dad's not going to love a goat gun. Coming a few days later, they ship really fast. GoatGuns.com. And you can also start stacking ammo for Dad over at AmmoSquared.com as well. And Bud's Gun Shop has tons of specials going on. Our exclusive online retailer budsgunshop.com. Let's go to Dr. John Lott, crimeresearch.org, who also needs our help. You can donate at crimeresearch.org. John's going to talk about research and fun stuff, and we're going to have some fun right now calling out Chris Murphy. Good heavens, John. I watch this guy's tweets every single day, Senator Chris Murphy out of Connecticut, the Constitution State. Y'all need to change your moniker because it ain't anything close to the Constitution State. And these guys hate your constitutional rights, Murphy and Blumenthal. But John Murphy's the worst of the worst. This guy looks at a camera standing side by side with Schumer and lies to the American public about the suppressors. It's just remarkable to witness this every single day. I mean, they literally will look at a camera at midnight and tell you that the sun is shining, and they'll do it with a straight face, John. It's very frustrating. It's hard to get that word out because the mainstream media just plays along. But you put a post out on X, formerly known as Twitter. Democrat Senator Chris Murphy falsely claims that suppressors make mass public shootings more deadly and make it, quote unquote, no one will be able to hear the gunshots. John, it's just one lie after another. Take it away. The mic is yours.
Wait. Are you saying that he's inaccurate, saying that you put a suppressor on and you just won't be able to hear the shot?
Yeah, well, hold on.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, let me do my best Chris Murphy silencer impersonation. He thinks all guns go like this, like they do in the movies. It's an absolute joke, and he knows better. Schumer said the only people that want these guns or suppressors are criminals. He's out of his ever-loving mind. They got to know better, John. Please, help me out here.
Right, yeah. No, he said silencers are kind of the preferred tools of killers and criminals. In 2024, there are about 3.5 million legally registered and owned suppressors in the United States. It's really hard to find any crimes that have occurred. I mean, you look over the last decade, there's like 44 cases where they had people prosecuted for illegally having or using a silencer. 44 in a decade. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, it's like a tiny fraction of like 1,000th of a percentage point of the suppressors out there were used improperly. And you know, this notion that somehow he has this one example where he's saying, you know, you're in a church and somebody's going from room to room. You won't even hear them in the room next to you that when they're firing this gun. I don't know if he's ever fired a gun inside an enclosed place, but you know, it's loud when you do it. And with the suppressors, you can look up the decibel level for like an AR-15 or a .45 caliber handgun. It's about the equivalent. It's as quiet as a jackhammer at close range in terms of the decibel level that's there. So, you know, and you put it inside a building where the sound reverberates and stuff, it's going to be very loud. He's probably never gone into an indoor shooting range or something. But you know, as far as mass public shootings, we've, of course, collect all this data on many aspects of these cases. If you look at everything from 1998 through the end of last year, there are 104 mass public shootings. Only 2 of them use suppressors, and the casualty rate was actually higher for the attacks that didn't use suppressors, which was about 19.8 on average versus 11 for the attacks that used suppressors. You know, for murders, they were essentially exactly the same in the 2 cases. So, but anyway, it's just, you know, I suppose you're right. You know, he just, either he's completely ignorant about how guns work and things like that, or he just lies.
No, he's lying. He's lying. And if you follow, and I know you do, but if, ladies and gentlemen, if you follow him on X, he is posting lies every single day. He's now attacking as MAGA, the guy that Tim Walz hired. You know, it's just that just murdered 2 politicians in Minnesota. But it goes beyond that. It's a lie every single day from this guy, John. So he clearly knows that's what he's doing. And in my mind, that makes him evil. Now, the only 2 cases that come to my mind, if I just blink and think about it, where suppressors were in high-profile shootings was Virginia Beach and of course the United Healthcare CEO just a few months back. Those are the two high-profile cases that come to my mind. I have a hard time digging into my memory without looking it up. Any others? And as you said, there were 40-some, just 44 in the last decade.
Yeah. Well, you have for mass public shootings, you have the Virginia Beach, and you have the 2020 shooting in Milwaukee. Just one point to make there: in both of those attacks, 2 guns were used. The silencer or the suppressor was only used on one of the 2 guns. So I'm not even sure what it accomplished in those 2 cases, because both the gun with the suppressor was fired and the one without the suppressor was fired. And so, even putting aside the fact that even with the suppressor, particularly inside a building, which is where these attacks occurred, it would be very loud.
And I think I may have said, if I did, I think I may have said Virginia Tech, not Virginia Beach. If I did, I apologize. Let me correct that. But it's interesting to note that every single witness in Virginia Beach was saying they could hear him coming closer because of the gunshots. And ladies and gentlemen, if you've never fired a suppressed weapon, the sound doesn't go away. It just lowers it to a safer level. And I would recommend if you have a suppressed weapon, you still wear hearing protection. The sound does not go away. This is not the movies. That's why I did that little because that's the way the movies make it look, and it's not like that at all. Most of us get our information from watching mainstream media, John, as you know, and movies, and that's what we see, and that's what movies have done to this idea of suppressors. Meanwhile, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people are firing their guns safely on ranges and sports shooting with suppressed weapons every day safely.
There are a couple points to make here. One is the United States is relatively restrictive, at least compared to a number of countries, even in Europe. You have countries like Sweden and Norway and Finland, which have little or no regulations on suppressors that are there. You can't really, you look across countries, you're not going to see any difference in terms of mass public shootings and whether or not they allow it or not. The other thing is, you're not really stopping criminals from being able to get these things if criminals really wanted to go and get them. People with just a moderate set of mechanical skills and access to some very basic metalworking tools are able to make a suppressor for their guns. And the notion, and you can get guides to making them on the internet. These are not particularly things that require a lot of skill to be able to go and make. I mean, it's not as simple, let's say, as a magazine for a gun. Those are incredibly simple to make, but they don't require a lot of
not a lot of skill there.
Skills.
Doesn't take a lot. When we come back, we're going to continue this conversation briefly. I want to talk about the reconciliation bill briefly with John. Then I want to go to the Austria school shooting, get his take on that. Because John's been preaching this for years, ladies and gentlemen. We'll get his take. Don't go away. John Lott, right after this. Great time to head over to NRA on the link, guys. If you're watching us, click on that and join us over there, would you please? $35. Help us. Help us grow the NRA back to what it needs to be. Trust me when I tell you, the other side, they ain't going away. Hey guys, if you're watching us, this is kind of fun stuff here. I'll throw this camera up real quick. But if you saw me take a sip out of this cup, this is cool. This just came to me the other day. This is an exact replica made by Jacob Bromwell. You ever watch the movie Tombstone? You see Doc Holliday flipping the little cup around in that famous scene with Johnny Bean in the Oriental Saloon. This is the exact cup. Yeah, they only made a few of these. I think about 100, and I was able to get one of these. But it's pretty cool. And I am drinking apple juice out of it. I really, truly am drinking apple juice. I'll prove it to you. Apple juice. See? It's apple juice. But it's pretty neat. So kind of cool. Kind of collect this stuff, you know. But the company was founded in 1819. They were the ones that made the U.S. and, little tin cups you see the Union soldiers drinking out of with the U.S. on them. I've got a couple of those. Got one of their CSA ones as well. Pretty cool historical stuff. Jacob Bromwell, check them out. We're not on their payroll. They just got some badass stuff. If you're into that flask kind of stuff, pretty cool. They got it going on over there. Kind of fun to have. Just neat stuff. Just neat stuff. Like neat stuff. Gotta love neat stuff. Neat stuff is neat. Roger that. Mics are up. Put cameras up for a second. Yes, hour flew right by. Good heavens.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Buckle in, guys. Now turn the AC off. So I'm starting to get in that little muscle memory there by the brakes, right?
Yep.
Welcome back, guys.
AttorneysOnRetainer.com. Visit them today. Welcome back to the show.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, AttorneysOnRetainer.us, AttorneysOnRetainer.us, or .com. Either one of them will get you there, AttorneysOnRetainer.us or AttorneysOnRetainer.com. They are the real deal. God forbid you need to use a firearm. You're going to want an attorney in your back pocket. Trust me, you do not want to wait until afterwards. It's going to cost you your house, your life savings, and everything else to defend yourself if that's what happens. Hopefully it doesn't, but it very well could. Why would you not have an attorney at $35 a month, $25 per person for family member, which is what I have? It's an absolute punch in the face, no-brainer. Just do it. And if you use the AAR promo code at attorneysonretainer.us/AAR, you'll get $50 off the sign-up fee over there. And as I said, it's only $35 a month. And you've got attorney-client privilege immediately with the only law firm in the country that is dedicated to one thing and one thing only: self-defense cases in all 50 states. They're not walking away from you. Famously, some other companies have done that. They're not going to do it. They are your attorney. It's that simple. Make sure to check them out. And all of our partners, excuse me, you can find them all at armedamericanradio.com. Let's go back to Dr. John Lott. We've got him for just the remainder of this segment. John, welcome back.
Thanks for having me on.
All right, so let's switch gears now to Austria. CCRKBA and Alan Gottlieb, who was just here, put out a pretty strong memo about this that just really blows the gun controllers' argument right out of the water. But you've been preaching this for years as to what happens overseas, because how many times have we heard, John, I wish I had $1 for every time I heard, this is a uniquely American problem. It's not a uniquely American problem, and you've gotten into some famous tussles with hosts on news shows all over the world, from the BBC to everybody in America, about this, trying to make the point. And you do make the point, they just don't want to hear it. Some of them have come around, but the fact of the matter is, what happened in Austria does happen, not just in Austria, but in other countries. We just tend not to hear about it because the media doesn't want to cover it because, well, it blows their narrative out of the water, and it really blows up their gun control issue, doesn't it?
Yeah, sure. Look, what will often happen is people will will just look at the numbers that occur in different countries and don't adjust for the differences in population sizes. So, in the United States, we have 340 million people. You have a country like Austria, which has about a little bit less than 9 million people. They have this school shooting despite all the regulations that they have, strict regulations, psychological and physical screening tests that they have for people to be able to get a license for a handgun, for example. Finland has had a couple mass public school shootings. Norway's had one. Germany's had several. But, even if you add up these countries that are there in terms of the population, or France has had a couple, these countries are tiny compared to the United States. Even Germany is like 80 million people that's there compared to our 340 million. So they have 4 mass public school shootings since 2000. We've had 9. You adjust for population, that'd be the equivalent of us having like 16. Or Austria has a population that's about 1/40th of ours. They've had this school shooting now. That would be the equivalent of us having 40 over the period of the last 25 years. So, Russia's had quite a few school shootings, even within the last couple of years. Obviously, they have a much smaller population than we have here in the United States, but it's all around the world. And if you look on a per capita basis, there are many countries in Europe, many countries in other places in the world that have had higher rates of mass public school shootings and higher rates of mass public shootings generally.
Well, John, when I like to look at the numbers in a really simple way, right? So let me make an analogy here. We see NICS checks, ladies and gentlemen. If you're new to the program, don't know what that is. That's the National Instant Criminal Check System. That's what's known as the background check form that you hear about, and that's really the only barometer and gauge that we have as far as purchases are concerned. If you believe the ATF is on the up and up, which I do not, but nonetheless, that's a different argument for a different show for a different day. But those sales based on those numbers, John, have been about $1 million a month, and they've been holding fairly steady over the last few years at $1 million a month. And sales are down somewhat. Go ahead.
Yeah, you mean $1 million background checks, not $1 million.
Checks, correct. $1 million background checks. Excuse me. So if you look at that and you think, okay, well, more guns equals more crime, which is what the left wants to tell you. How come there aren't 25 million murders a year? It just seems to very simplistically blow their argument right out of the water just by scratching the surface of it without even doing the research that you do. But why? Tell me why.
I don't know. I mean, I think people constantly hear about bad things that happen with guns on the news. They rarely hear about the benefits that are there. It's not too surprising that they think that the solution is simply to go and get rid of guns. But you have about 260,000 crimes a year which are committed with guns. Who knows how many guns are legally owned in the United States? There are some estimates of 400 million. But, that's based on a lot of assumptions. Mm-hmm. So even, and maybe each crime gun is used twice on average in a crime over the course of a year. You're talking about a tiny fraction of, like a tenth of percentage point of guns which are used in the commission of a crime. So it's over 99.9% of guns aren't used. Even if you want to go and say over the course of a decade or whatever like that, you're talking about a tiny fraction of a percent of guns which are going to be used in crimes. And so, and of course, the biggest thing, the most important comparison to me, is comparing times that guns are used in commission of crimes versus times that guns are used to stop crime. And I think the best estimates that we have indicate that people use guns defensively to stop crimes about 5 times more frequently than they're used to commit crimes. So, you have all these lawsuits, like the country of Mexico trying to sue Smith & Wesson and others saying that they should be responsible for any costs that occur from people using guns in the commission of crime. Well, we're going to pay them for all the benefits that they get, which are going to be 5 times larger in terms of people whose lives or property or rapes that are stopped and other crimes that are stopped because people are going to be able to defend themselves. Too much of the discussion only looks at one side. There's costs and benefits of everything that we have in society. And, having police are extremely important, but the police themselves are extremely strong supporters of private ownership of guns because the police understand, even though they are extremely important, I think the single most important factor for stopping crime, they realize that they virtually always arrive on the crime scene after the crimes occurred. And the question is, what should people do when they're having to confront a criminal by themselves? And
John,
simply telling people to behave passively isn't the best advice.
They're the ones that are out there in the street and see the crime every day. They see it every day. That's why they know. John Lott, crimeresearch.org. Thank you for being here, John. Happy Father's Day to you, my friend. It's always a pleasure to have you here. Hour 1 is already in the tank, ladies and gentlemen. Can you believe it? Hey, you can visit crimeresearch.org and help John with all of his research. We help John get his word out every single week on this program because it is so vital, because the mainstream media will not give you this information. You just heard the numbers right from John's mouth. Guns are used 5 times more frequently to stop crime than are you. That should be the number one human interest story on the news every single day, and it's not. So we make it the number one story here. An early roundtable coming up next. The whole crew will be here. Don't go away. Guys, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with you here in just a few minutes. Armed American Radio will be back at 6 minutes after the hour as our affiliate stations around the nation, hundreds of them, take their top of the hour break. Give you the news, weather, sports, all that fun stuff. We'll be back here at 6 minutes after the hour live. One more, I'll give you a little announcement here. What's going on for the show today, guys? I'm going to bring the camera back up for you. Let me pull that up for you. We had some scheduling conflicts. It's Father's Day. And, our guests that come on here on a regular basis are dads, just like I am, just like you are. And we try to give them the time off. They give us their time every week, and in many cases during the week as well, on the Armed American Radio Daily Defense. So when we have an opportunity to tell them to spend some time with their family, we do so. Alan couldn't wait to get here today. We offered him the same opportunity. He says, no, I want to talk with everybody about what's happening. It's what we love so much about Alan. He's here. He gives so much of his time. AWR Hawkins gives his time. John gives his time, and they were all able to come on. But what we're going to do in the third hour of the program is we're going to rerun my interview with attorneys on retainer in the third hour that occurred on June 5th in Phoenix with Mark Victor, the founder of Attorneys on Retainer, the Attorneys for Freedom Law Group that defends you. God forbid you need it. That's why they're there. And we're doing an early roundtable so the guys can spend even more time with their family. Everybody's in a little different time zone, so it works out really well. So we appreciate you hanging with us for that as we run that encore in the third hour and understanding why we do that. And that's why, because these guys give us a ton of their time. We want them to have as much time with their families as possible. So. Greg, honestly, I was shocked everybody was able to do that. It'll be interesting to see if everybody makes the time zones. We're going to bring Russell Stewart on today from California. He wants to talk about the riots in L.A., and I can't wait to get him on, but he's out in Hawaii right now. He's 6 hours behind. So time zones were kind of a mess today, along with Father's Day and everything else. But we're honored to be able to give those guys the time off. So we'll be back here in exactly 6 minutes, guys. Greg, there's we got the whole crew here, right? Everybody's locked in an hour early?
Yeah, gang's all here.
All right, good deal. I was surprised. I thought somebody would. I think Ryan's in the Central Time Zone today too. That always wreaks havoc with us, right? But there's a great headline up today. You know, we've been talking this week, ladies and gentlemen, about permitless carry bill heading to the governor's desk in North Carolina. Wait till you hear the headline. How do you think the bill got to his desk? Okay? The legislation passed. Wait till you hear the headline. This is the way the media screws you every time they get an opportunity to do so. You got to look at this stuff and you scratch your head. Well, what? How did they write that headline? You'll see when we come back. I'm going to lead off with that one because it's fun. And I'm sure the guys will have some choice comments about the rioting going on in L.A.
I'm sure Brad will have some words.
Oh, I'm sure. Justin, too.
$30.
Yeah, it's cut off this AC. Felt good in here. It ran for 6 minutes. Got her done.
This is Armed American Radio.
If they want to take my guns, they're going to have to bring a station wagon and a whole lot of friends because I'm not giving them anything.
From the Car Firearms Group studio at the Patriot Mobile Communication Center on the Sig Sauer Platinum microphone. Proudly presented to you by the National Rifle Association. National Rifle Association. Here is your host of Armed American Radio, the loudest conservative voice in America fighting for your rights, Mark Walters.
All right, guys, hour 2, hour 1 in the tank already. Wow, flying right by. Buckle in. Car Firearms Group Studios lit up for you here. Kind of a weird hour because we're a little bit earlier for a classic Armed American Radio roundtable, Greg, in Dallas, Texas. Not used to this.
Yeah, it's a little early, but hey,
the Constitution a little bit, huh?
we'll get through it.
I think we'll make it through. And it's a Father's Day, so happy Father's Day to everybody out there. As I was talking to people during the break, if you're watching the show, you caught some of that sausage in between the breaks. But, ladies and gentlemen, these guys give us so much of their time, and whenever we have an opportunity to give them time off, we throw it out, particularly on a Father's Day. We were very polite and asked who could make it, who couldn't, and please take the time off. Alan, no, I want to be there. John, I want to be there. The roundtable crew, no, we want to be there. So that's why we're doing a roundtable for you early today. And in the next hour of the program, we're going to be rerunning my interview with Mark Victor from Attorneys on Retainer when I was out in Phoenix just last week. So enjoy that because Mark is a firebrand, man, and you're going to enjoy that interview. If you didn't hear it on the Daily Defense, you will hear it in the next hour, and it's a good one. It will wake you up, trust me, but he's a lot of fun. Very, 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 very aggressive in his defense of your right to keep and bear arms over there, Attorneys for Freedom Law Group, which is attorneys on retainer.us. All this is coming to you on the Sig Sauer microphone from the Car Firearms Group Studios, brought to you by the National Rifle Association. We're here at the Patriot Mobile Command Center. Please visit all of our great partners. You can find them all at armedamericanradio.com. If you're watching the show, if you're not, you can watch us on facebook.com/armedamericanradio. Greg, take it away. Give them your spiel, and we'll get to the group.
Yeah, you can also watch the show over on YouTube and Rumble. Just search for Armed American Radio with Mark Walters. Over on X, it's at AAR Mark. To join our live chat, just download the Telegram messaging app, create your profile, and search for Armed American Radio Conversations.
Just had a sip of some tasty apple juice out of this
There you
new
go.
Jacob Bromwell Doc Holliday cup. Fantastic. So cool. I waited like 9 weeks to get that thing.
Man,
And it's like one of 100 made. Really cool to have.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. Here you go, ladies and gentlemen. If you remember the movie Tombstone, this is it. It's made by Jacob Bromwell. I don't want to spill my apple juice on me, but there you go. Pretty cool stuff. All right, let's start with Justin Moon, CEO of Car Arms. We're in the Car Firearms Group studios. Justin, how you doing, my brother? Happy Father's Day, bro.
Doing good, Mark. Thanks for having me, and happy Father's Day to you, my friend.
Yeah, it is a pleasure, man. It's always a pleasure. Ryan Petty, Parkland father, happy Father's Day. I guess you're in a different time zone today, huh?
I am in the East Coast as I'm back. I made it back home finally. Happy Father's Day, Mark.
You
Good
did.
to be here.
Good. Excellent. Very good. So, yeah, we're an hour early. Thank you for being here. I know it's kind of messes with everybody's constitution. Great to have you here. Happy Father's Day to you, my brother. And Brad Primo, happy Father's Day to you, young man. Always a pleasure.
Thanks, Mark, and same to you, and thanks for having me.
Guys, I'm going to start with a headline that, I love to Google the two words gun control, right? It's always fun to do every show because, well, they're going to hand you something. They're going to hand you your topic on a platter if you want to go that route. But one of the headlines jumped out at me, and you guys know me enough to know that we don't like to headline surf, right? But you guys are all familiar, and I think we talked about it last week, but the permitless concealed carry bill, otherwise known as constitutional carry, is headed to the governor's desk in North Carolina, right? Everybody remembers that? Pretty sure? Here's the headline at WSOC TV 9, North Carolina, 3 days ago. Permitless concealed carry bill heads to North Carolina governor despite bipartisan opposition. Now, Brad, you got to explain this to me. It made it. How did it get to the governor's desk? Because it was opposed?
Yeah, it got voted on.
It got voted on. All right, so let's go back. It's on his desk waiting to be signed. Now, the question is it going to be signed? We're going to go there now and talk about the little nuances of that. But the headline just kind of jumped out at me. I did a what? Permitless concealed carry bill heads to North Carolina governor despite bipartisan opposition. I guess the writer, well, maybe doesn't know how the legislative process works because it passed and got to the governor's desk. Is there some opposition? Yes, but notice what they focus on, Brad. They focus on the opposition, not the majority that got it to the governor's desk. So this is in and of itself a biased headline, and it's why we have to pay so much attention to these headlines. But nonetheless, Brad, when you hear a headline like that, what do you think?
I mean, what you said, it's just media spin, and for all we know, and I haven't looked at the numbers, but the bipartisan opposition could have been like one Republican voting against it, right?
Yeah.
It's just, they can't wrap their minds around the fact that, law-abiding people can carry firearms without a permit, and bad things will not happen. It's a concept they cannot wrap their minds around. It's completely foreign to them. They live in fear constantly. I mean, you think about these people. They're a lot of them are anxiety-ridden, fearful wimps. Is probably the best way I can describe them. And they just can't fathom that actual normal people can carry a gun without hurting anybody if they don't have to.
Justin, they're oblivious to the fact that people are standing in front of them or behind them in the grocery store line, the bank line, at the gas station, at a Best Buy, at a Goodwill, at a fast food joint. It doesn't matter. Millions of Americans are armed, and there's someone likely armed somewhere where they happen to be. And they just don't like to think about that. But the headline was very disingenuous and kind of hilarious. I got a kick out of it because there's a big disconnect there, Justin, obviously. But nonetheless, here's what they had to say, Justin. Here's many groups that support more gun control disagree with the sentiment that pro-gun, that this is going to help. There are many laws that people break, Justin. But is that a reason not to have a law in the first place? I mean, that's just insane, said Becky Sertis with North Carolinians Against Gun Violence. And then the piece was fair, shot back at WSOC with, but some argue the bill will help law-abiding gun owners to protect themselves. The bottom line is criminals will carry anyway. All we're doing, once again, as we've done before, is to allow the law-abiding to remain law-abiding. Justin, why can't, as Brad said, some people wrap their head around the fact that good people carry firearms for good reasons every single day, and they cannot figure out that bad people carry guns regardless of what the law says, that this only impacts law-abiding citizens. Justin, can you help me out?
Well, Mark, I think the deep state criminals have a lot to do with the strange headlines that we see.
That's a true statement.
History tells us that you're more likely to be killed by a criminal government than you are to be killed by a real murderer or criminal. I mean, you're 40 times more people have been killed by, fascists, by communists, by dictators during peacetime. So I'm keeping my gun, Mark.
Nobody's getting it, Justin. Ryan Petty, take a listen to what this Becky Sertis had to say. She went a little deeper. She probably should have just stopped. She didn't help herself. It's still a felony or a crime for them to carry concealed, but we would not know that without a background check. So clearly, Ryan, this person believes that criminals buy their guns, get background checks, and the only reason they don't have a gun is because the background checks stop them. She must honestly believe that to have uttered that statement, Ryan. So she made herself look pretty stupid, and we have no problem elevating it to this microphone and to hundreds of radio stations around the nation. She just don't get it, brother, does she?
Mark, it's striking how many Americans today are afraid of freedom, right? They fear armed citizens, not because we're dangerous, but because we're free. Our founders did not fear freedom. That's why they gave us the Constitution to enact that, to protect us from government. Justin made the fantastic point. More people in the world in the last 100 years have been killed by their own governments than by armed citizens. And I'll I'd like to remind her, freedom isn't safe, and it never was supposed to be safe. It's a responsibility. It's not a luxury. And the Second Amendment is our last line of defense. That's what we have to keep in mind when these tyrannical nanny staters, govern me harder coalition, I like to call them, right?
I love it.
When they come
So
out,
fitting.
they don't like freedom. They are afraid of freedom, and that's what drives this. Unfortunately, unfortunately learned this. I think we saw it manifest during COVID. The number of people that wanted to be told what to do to be safe, right? And we saw it firsthand in a context other than the Second Amendment. But these same people that wanted to be told how far to stand apart from each other, how many times to get vaccinated, how many masks they should wear, that same group is the group that fears freedom and that wants to tell you and me, Mark, how we can defend ourselves.
Well, when we come back, I'm going to tell you, you brought it up with the mask. I got to go there. I was at my guitar shop over the weekend, and I'll tell you a quick funny story about it. And I'm also going to give you some actual numbers because Brad, Brad nailed it with the headline and the bipartisan opposition. I'll tell you how much bipartisan opposition there really was when we come back. We'll continue the discussion. Don't go away.
The following segment of Armed American Radio is proudly being brought to you by the National Rifle Association. Help us defend freedom by visiting nra.org/AAR and join today. Welcome back to the show.
Yeah, welcome back to the show, ladies and gentlemen. You heard that rejoin. Please help us join the National Rifle Association, nra.org/AAR. That simply says, hey, thanks for supporting Armed American Radio. Of course, the show is brought to you by the National Rifle Association. Thank them for supporting the program. Pick up a membership over there. You get a great discount. Buy 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, life membership. Doesn't matter. Get a discount on any of them. You get a cool hat. You get to pick I like the America's First Freedom magazine. Always have for many, many years. But the National Rifle Association has fixed itself, folks, and they need your support. And I know a lot of people are apprehensive about that. I hear from you. And I'm not disagreeing with you. A lot of folks remember the last 5, 6, 7 years in particular, myself included. And it was after long conversations with the National Rifle Association. Believe me, folks, they fixed themselves, and they need our support. Even when it was a mess, I told you still needed to be a member of the NRA. It is still the 800-pound gorilla in the room. Join them. They're the group out there. They've got more money than everybody else out there. And now that they're focused in the right areas, folks, the National Rifle Association has your back. Please support them. Give them a chance. If you bailed on them, come back. I'm asking you to come back. It's $35. You don't have to donate any more money if you don't want to, but join the NRA. Be a part of it. Be a part of what's happening in the future of the NRA. We have to stop looking past. Welcome back inside the Car Firearms Group studios with me. You can find all of our great partners, including Attorneys on Retainer, Ammo Squared, Crossbreed Holsters, Car Arms, Daniel Defense. They're all there for you at armedamericanradio.com, including Heaven's Harvest for your emergency food supplies, Bud's Gun Shop, our exclusive online retailer. You know where to go, armedamericanradio.com. Ryan, I think we closed out with you. Brad, I'm going to jump over to you. It was funny because you mentioned in there it was probably one Republican. Well, you were dead wrong, bro. It was 2. I mean, you need to start Googling and getting your facts together before you get on air. Well, I hate to have to fact check you in front of a live audience, bro. No, honestly.
Well, by 50%.
You were half off, bro. But yeah, it was. It's funny because here they pulled out an Elon University poll based in North Carolina, found 54% of North Carolinians oppose permitless carry with 34% support. Those don't mean anything to me. They take another poll tomorrow, it'll be different. The bill passed along party lines except for 2 Republicans in the State House who voted against it. However, many lawmakers expect Governor Josh Stein to veto it. Now, I'm not a lawmaker, but I expect him to veto it too. And here's the kicker, Brad. Without those 2 votes, plus at least one Democrat changing teams, it'll be hard for Republicans to get this bill into law. My gut is that Stein is going to veto the bill. I'm just curious as to what you think.
Yeah, I'm sure he will. I mean, North Carolina, when it comes to guns, has been, kind of a purple state for a while. I mean, I remember, when I lived there, I was stationed there at Fort Bragg. I mean, this is, a long time ago now, but I believe it's still the case. I mean, you have to get a permit to go buy a handgun. So, similar to, I think, what you have to have in Illinois. So they've long been kind of on that gray area, really, in my opinion, actually not even in the gray area. They've been, to the left when it comes to gun ownership. So, this bill is not going to pass. I mean, the governor's not going to sign it. And, I guess they probably don't have enough to override a veto. So, sorry, North Carolinians, your rights aren't going to get respected by your legislature.
Justin, North Carolina residents have only one hope at this point, and that's to contact the governor's office continuously, ring the phones off the hook, send snail mail, do whatever you need to do, make the phone calls, send email, do whatever you have to do at this point and make their voices heard. At this stage, Justin, it's all we've got left, right? Maybe, just maybe, a Democrat will actually listen to the people. Okay, that's a stretch, but you never know.
Yeah, I don't know about that, Mark. I'll believe that a Democrat will vote for the people when snails fly. So.
Yeah, well, we're going to talk a little bit about Democrats and what they're doing around the country, and we're going to kind of focus on Chris Murphy because it's a joke. But Ryan, down in Florida, you guys are facing some problems too, and here it is, the old gunshine state. I say it's the old gunshine state because it's not the gunshine state anymore. We need to see it get there. DeSantis has said the right things. Republicans have been the ones standing in the way there. And you've got 2 Republicans standing in the way in North Carolina right now that if they would just join the team, okay, maybe it would be possible to flip a Democrat based on the district they're in. There are Democrats in red districts in the state of North Carolina. All you got to do, Ryan, is look at the electoral college map, if you will, of the state of North Carolina, and you'll find it's pretty darn red, like most states. And it's a southern state. You wouldn't expect that, but you understand how that game is played in Florida because you have to fight it. You had to fight it to get permitless carry, even in a bright red state like Florida.
Yeah, you know, it's funny about that. This was back when the governor and the legislature appeared to be getting along. They've decided to play an intramural sport this last session and fight with the governor on everything that he, his priorities and things he wanted to do in some sort of attempt to appear more MAGA than the governor. Anyway, it's hard to understand it. It's hard to justify it. But one of the things we did, and this, I thought this was sweet irony, because of some of the gun control legislation that was put in the Parkland bill. When I went up to Tallahassee to testify for constitutional carry, of course, the legislators that I knew thought I was there to speak to the school safety bill. What the legislature did at that time was they went put constitutional carry in the school safety legislation, which I thought was perfect, because that passes almost unanimously every year, Mark. And so we knew it was a foregone conclusion that it would win. I went up. Of course, I supported the school safety legislation, but I went up specifically to Tallahassee to testify for constitutional carry, and it was my honor and privilege to do so. And we moved that forward. Hopefully we can get over these little, skirmishes that we're going, these intramural Republican skirmishes in Florida, and we can get back to the people's work next session.
But in many cases, we're only talking 1, 2, or 3 votes. Yet there's always that, you can count on that one Republican, right? If you talk about the suppressors right now, in the reconciliation bill coming out of Congress, Murkowski and Collins have not said what they're going to do. Stephen Gutowski at The Reload did some fantastic reporting over the past week, guys. Brad, he asked all 50 senators to respond. And most Republicans did respond on what they were going to do with that, because we need to move that out of the Senate, and the fight over suppressors is now ongoing, which is why you're seeing Murphy and Schumer and the rest of them et al. Out there making boneheads of themselves, actually just literally lying to everybody. But nonetheless, it's just 1 or 2, and the Republicans just refuse to stick together like the Democrats do. And in many cases, it can knock this out, because the Democrats are focused on this, Brad. They're laser focused on trying to get this suppressors, pulling it out from the NFA. They're trying to get that pulled out, and they could be successful in the Senate. Hopefully not. We've got 20 seconds. Go ahead and take us to the break, then we'll come back to you and go up to Justin.
Yeah, it underlines the point. I don't know if you saw this past week, a study that came out that shows that diversity of thought is much more common on the right than it is on the left. So we have actually a much wider tent of people. But, there's always a couple of Republicans that just are not comfortable with Americans fully exercising their Second Amendment rights. And we need to keep that in mind when we vote for Republicans, to not vote for the ones that have that problem.
Yeah, guys,
not
it's
all
not
our friends.
That they're not. It's not a foregone conclusion, because there's an R next to their name. It's weighted a little bit more in favor of your gun rights, but it's not a foregone conclusion. We've got 2 more segments left for the crew. We'll be back with Ryan Petty, Brad Primo, CEO of Lead Slingers, and of course we'll be back with Justin Moon, CEO of Car Arms. You're in the Car Arms studios with me, and you're on the Armed American Radio Network.
AC off.
Mike Gallagher wanting to let you know that the crew of the Desperado Sport Fish in Virginia Beach, Virginia supports Armed American Radio and the Second Amendment, and I'm right there with them. Now back to Mark Walters.
And here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Armed American Radio's Monster Cast continues on a Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to you. And single ladies out there that are raising kids, Father's Day to you too. You're doing both jobs. Tough job, I know, believe me, firsthand. So God bless each and every one of you. I hope you guys are having a great day. And I appreciate you tuning in to Armed American Radio on hundreds of radio stations around the nation. We're here in the Car Firearms Group studios with you in front of this powerful Sig Sauer Platinum microphone. And it's all being brought to you from the Patriot Mobile Ranch by the National Rifle Association. I've got the link up. If you're watching on social media, it's right below me there. You can see it. That's a live link. Click it. Join them. Justin Moon, CEO of Car Arms. Let's go back to you. So I'm going to start by reading you some tweets from Chris Murphy. This despicable gasbag, gaslighting liar who is remarkable to watch. I generally don't stress myself out with this stuff. I try to stay away from it as much as possible, but it's hard to do when you do this for a living, particularly when it's Chris Murphy who's got the little orange anti-gun square there, which means I hate the constitutional right to keep and bear arms, even though I come from the Constitution state. What a joke that is. That irony and hypocrisy is not lost on this radio host. But here's what he's talking about: violence. Trump sends clear signals supporting political violence. Said he might pardon those that plotted the kidnapping of Governor Whitmer. Threatened peaceful protesters of his military parade with assault. Brad, we're going to go to the military parade. I want to get your opinion on that in a few minutes. Again, Democrats don't say these things. Not both sides. It's true the violence is sometimes trained on Republicans, including Trump. Yesterday, in fact, was the anniversary of the congressional baseball shooting. And yes, there have been some on the left who have been too cavalier about violence, and they should be condemned too. But there is no comparison anywhere on the left with MAGA's regular legitimization of violence in our politics. There is a straight line from January 6th to the pardons to the assault on Senator Padilla to Minnesota. A democracy cannot function when one faction embraces violence. The Minnesota assassin, Justin, appears to be a hate-filled right-winger. Somebody might want to tell him what was found in the car, but that's another show. So can we stop walking on eggshells about MAGA's legitimization of political violence? Yes, Republicans have also been the target of inexcusable violence, but this isn't a both sides issue. And we cannot discount the impact of MAGA's fetishization of guns. MAGA celebrates the tools of mass shooters and assassins: assault rifles, machine guns, silencers, and high-capacity magazines. MAGA doesn't treat firearms with respect. It celebrates their killing power. But it didn't start with January 6th. Trump regularly threatened protesters at his rallies with violence. He cozied up to brutal dictators abroad who used violence to maintain political control. There was no comparison in Democratic messaging. And he goes on and on and on. For the last 5 years, MAGA has been bathed in political violence. Justin, you got to try to set me right here. Is he not a champion of the Democrat Party who is wreaking violence in American cities with their no kings nonsense, ripping apart now Portland, Oregon, been destroying Los Angeles? Every single one of those quote-unquote protesters is a Democrat, and every single Democrat supports them. Justin, am I missing something, or is Chris Murphy missing something? Justin, it's all you.
Well, I think you're right. You got the nail on the head there, Mark. I mean, the assassin over there in Minnesota who shot those Democratic senators was a Democrat appointed by Wolf. And you know,
yeah, there's that.
The Minnesota governor kidnapping was a false flag by the FBI. That was the FBI doing it. It wasn't MAGA. And, you know, everything else you described, the Democrats were the ones doing the violence. The only people who died in January 6th were protesters who were peacefully protesting. So, you know, you can give the Democrats credit. They'll lie for the deep state, straight-faced, right to you every single time. I mean, they are very consistent, Mark.
It is incredible to see. And Ryan Petty, it's also very scary to see a guy stand up there and say these things on a public forum like this and have an audience. And there are people who fall for this, people who believe this. Every single city that's ever been destroyed by a riot in America has been destroyed by left-wing Democrats and supported by people like Murphy. And, I don't know, we could pick a whole bunch of them. Let's say Schumer, who stood on the steps of the Supreme Court and said, "We're coming after you." Now, I want to read this to you, Ryan, because, well, I can. Let me pull this up here from my screenshots here. And let's see, here it is. This is the screenshot. Here, let me give you some quotes. Kamala Harris, repeatedly, Trump is a threat to our democracy and fundamental freedoms, Ryan. Kamala Harris, it's on us to recognize the threat Trump poses. Kamala Harris, does one of us have to come out alive? Ha, 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 ha. Joe Biden, it's time to put Trump in a bullseye. Joe Biden, I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Trump is a threat to this nation. Joe Biden, there is one existential threat. It's Donald Trump. Joe Biden, Trump is a genuine threat to this nation. He's literally a threat to everything America stands for. Joe Biden, Trump and MAGA Republicans are a threat to the very soul of this country. Joe Biden, Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic, and that is a threat to this country. Tim Waltz, are Republicans a threat to democracy? Yes. Are they going to put people's lives in danger? Yes. When he got done saying that, he went back and put his clown shoes on, by the way. They just didn't say that. Gwen Waltz, his wife. Bye-bye, Donald Trump. Representative Nancy Pelosi, Trump is a threat to our democracy of the kind we have not seen. Jasmine Crockett, MAGA in general, they are threats to us domestically. Dan Goldman, representative, he is destructive to our democracy and he has to be eliminated. Disgraced Harris after TJ Duckload, Trump is an existential, urgent threat to our democracy. Top Harris surrogate Liz Cheney, Trump presents a fundamental threat to the republic and we are seeing it on a daily basis. Ryan, oh, there you go.
Yeah, you've given me more examples than I can count on both hands, and I started using my toes. Look,
and that's not scratching the surface, by the way.
No, it's not. Look, the violent rhetoric and calls to violence consistently come from the left. What conservatives typically do when you look at the language is we're typically quoting the founders, or we're talking about resisting tyranny. Whenever we do this, the left screams insurrection and extremism. And of course, Biden, the Biden administration said the number one threat to our democracy, which they consistently misunderstand and misuse the phrase democracy, because they don't want to recognize that we have a constitutional republic, and they hope the voters are stupid enough to understand. They would love nothing more. They would love nothing more, Mark, than the tyranny of the majority. But the violent rhetoric, the push forward, Schumer on the steps of the Supreme Court threatening Gorsuch and Kavanaugh by name, no outrage, nothing said in the media. Maxine Waters, you remember her? She was out on there to, get in their faces, push back on them. Barack Obama said, get in their faces. It's all violent rhetoric on the left, but it's excused as well. We don't mean violence, and they get away with it because the media is the marketing arm of the Democrat Party, and so when Democrats do it, it's okay. When we say anything. And again, we're just talking about respecting our Constitution. We're talking about resisting tyrannical government. Of course, we're the extremists. I'll end by saying this. Our founding fathers were considered extremists by the government in London. And if they were considered extremists, then perhaps we're in good company.
Yeah, only the left can take a word like patriot and demonize it. And demonize you for being a patriot. They're very good at it. Brad, we've got 30 seconds. I'll hand it off to you. Take us to the break, and then we come back. I want to go to Trump's parade.
I mean, the only thing that Donald Trump is a threat to is a threat to the corruption that these people have been engaging in for decades. And look, I said it last week. I'm going to say it again. We didn't all start putting video cameras on our porches because Republicans are stealing packages from us. We don't carry guns when we leave the house because we're worried about conservative Republicans attacking us. Our cities are not being burnt down by conservative Republicans protesting. There's one group that's doing it, and there's one group that's a threat to your life every day, and it's not Republicans.
That would be the Democrat Party, ladies and gentlemen. Brad just nailed it yet again. Brad's the hammer, baby. Love it. When we come back, we have one more segment. We'll go to the parade in Washington and the riots out in California. Don't go away.
The Democrats are coming. The Democrats are coming.
following segment of Armed American Radio is being brought to you by AttorneysOnRetainer.com. AttorneysOnRetainer.com. Visit them today. Welcome back to the show.
Folks, they're the real deal. They are the real deal. AttorneysOnRetainer.com. Have one in your hip pocket. If you carry a firearm, if you've ever carried a firearm, if you're considering carrying a firearm, you run through all these scenarios in your head. I know you do, and you should be if you carry a firearm. What if? What would I do? And that's all great. But everything unfolds in a flash, in a blink of an eye. I know it from firsthand experience because I was forced to draw my firearm a number of years ago. Fortunately, I didn't have to pull the trigger, but I would have if it became necessary, if Mr. Glock's invention at the time that I was carrying a Glock 36 had not done its job simply by being there. It worked. But if I had to pull that trigger, maybe not even if I pulled the trigger. If they had made a phone call, said somebody had pulled a gun on him and tried to come out like the good guy to make a 911 call, because I got the drop on him, I didn't have an attorney at that time. And that could have cost me everything to prove my innocence. It's not necessary now. AttorneysOnRetainer.us. AttorneysOnRetainer.us/AAR has you covered. Get $50 off your sign up and have an attorney-client privilege immediately. Welcome back to the Car Firearms Group studios with me. 6 Hour Mike lit up here at the Patriot Mobile Command Center. Make sure to check Patriot Mobile. This is a Patriot Mobile phone, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be adding 4 more because they got a great deal going on over there. I'll tell you about that on Armed American Radio's Daily Defense tomorrow in greater detail. But welcome back, folks. And again, remember, it's all being brought to you by the National Rifle Association. Check out all of our great partners. You can find them all at armedamericanradio.com. Brad, the military parade. Let's go there.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
I did too.
I wasn't. Leading up to it, I was kind of neutral. I was like, I kind of got a chuckle because I know how bad it really sucks to be those guys having to get ready for that, because we're talking 5 a.m. formations to stand around, to be another formation at 8, to be another formation at 10.
Mm-hmm.
All the cleaning in those vehicles they had to do. I mean, privates probably in a wet weather gear, power washers under a tank, cleaning mud off of it and stuff. But I say those soldiers put a lot of time and effort and work into making that parade possible. And there's a lot of officers and NCOs that did a lot of work making that parade possible. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with celebrating an institution that predates our country,
mm-hmm.
and celebrating the people that have taken the time to set aside time in their lives to serve this country in that capacity. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And anybody who has a problem with it really needs to recalibrate their values and really think about what they're opposing, because, there's nothing wrong with that. They ought to be proud of the people and the men and women who marched in that parade. They should be proud of them, because those guys, they're out there, they're not making a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing something that they don't have to do, and they're doing it anyways. And they're doing it on behalf of a lot of people who otherwise won't or can't, and they need to think about that.
Well said. Justin, what is it about the left that they cannot distinguish between celebrating 250 years of George Washington forming the Continental Army from a dictator in North Korea? Why can't they distinguish the difference? What is it? And I know it's a difficult question. I guess I'm asking you to get in their heads psychologically. It's impossible to do. But why, Justin, can they not make that distinction? Why can they not celebrate 250 years of American firepower that has kept this country free and the world? We've saved the world's ass more times than we have fingers and toes. Why can't they make that distinction, Justin? Why? You know a little bit about the Korean conflict. You know what happened in North Korea. Why can't they make that distinction, Justin?
Well, when our nation was founded, the founders conceived the Army to be us, the
Right.
American militiaman, the Minuteman. So, I mean, really, what celebrating military history is, it should be celebrating the American citizen who carries a gun. That's really what the celebration is. So, I thought, Trump's parade was great. It would have been even better if it had regular citizens armed with their guns marching together with the military.
Yeah, not possible to do in the streets of Washington, D.C. That's a great point. Ryan Petty, can you help me understand why the American left simply cannot embrace 250-year birthday, I'm going to say anniversary, birthday of America's military power. Why? Why is that shunned by the left?
Well, first of all, the majority of them, and when I say majority, I mean, 95% suffer from Trump derangement syndrome. So anything that,
yes,
yeah, anything that Trump does, they're going to have this reflexive, reactive response to it. So that's number one. They hate Trump. He's in their heads. They've got a mental illness. Well, we know they have a mental illness because of the way they vote. They're leftists. But look, the U.S. Army isn't just a military branch, right? It symbolizes our American spirit. This is a fighting force that has stood between tyranny and liberty for 250 years.
Well said.
And I'll remind you that in those 250 years, something that is almost unique. In fact, I can't think of one off the top of my head. I'm not a historian, but what other military force with such awesome power, and think of the power the U.S. Army has not attempted to take over the government of that country. This is a military that has been subservient to civilian control, as bestowed on the President of the United States, and we should be celebrating that. We should be sharing that with our children. They need to understand that we can be strong and we can defend our nation and our principles, and a military doesn't have to take over the country like they see all around the world. This was an opportunity to celebrate America and her history, and Democrats can't stand that because they want to fundamentally transform America, and we can't look back at what a beautiful country we have, because then we can't condemn it, and then they fear they can't change it.
Yeah, well said. I'll leave it at that. Brad, are we in the midst, and we've only got a few seconds left, but are we in the midst of a Summer of Love 2.0?
I mean, I hope not, but probably. I mean, they're not really getting a lot of traction, I don't think. So perhaps they'll shift focus and try another tack, but I don't think they have a whole lot of cards in their hands. So I think this is their only one, and they're going to use it to maximum effect, and we'll see how it goes. But I think the American people, by and large, are getting real sick and tired of this, and I think it's going to cost the Democrats. I mean, I think,
I agree.
It's going to cost them, and I hope it costs them dearly, both physically and at the election, at the polls.
Justin, you get the last word before the music. Trump's winning.
Yeah, Trump is definitely winning. We support him 110%. And we gotta fight for the Second Amendment going. Mark.
You better believe it, Justin. And you're doing it every week on the program and everything that you do at Car Arms. Thank you, brother, for everything you do. Happy Father's Day, Ryan Petty. Happy Father's Day. I know your kids are a wonderful family. Thank you for being here and taking time out of your very busy schedule. And Brad, your beautiful family as well. Get back to them, brother. And thanks for being here. Tremendous insight. Fantastic roundtable. A little bit earlier than usual by a solid hour, but boy, it was a good one. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed bringing it to you. Happy Father's Day to everybody out there. We appreciate everything that you do, dads and single moms, all of you. You know what I'm talking about.
20.
Enjoy your day. Stay safe. What's left of your day, enjoy every bit of it with your family. And guys, we're going to get up and do it again tomorrow precisely because they don't want us talking about that stuff. That's why we do it. Armed American Radio's Daily Defense will continue 4 to 5 Eastern. Enjoy your day. Stay safe. See you on the radio. Happy Father's Day.
You just filled your prescription for freedom with Mark Walters, presented by the National Rifle Association. The National Rifle Association on the Armed American Radio Network.
Thanks for being here, guys. Appreciate it. Happy Father's Day. Enjoy your day. We're going to get back to our family coming up in the next hour. You have Mark Victor, my interview with him from the AM 960, The Patriot in Phoenix, Arizona on June 5th. Enjoy it and join them over there. there's never been a better time. And if you carry a gun, if you're even considering it, have an attorney in your hip pocket. Attorneysonretainer.us. Rejoin or join the National Rifle Association today. Please help us. Visit John Lott at crimeresearch.org and all of our great partners. You can find them all at armedamericanradio.com. They make the show possible every single year, 17 years on the nation's airwaves now. Heading into, next April will be our 17th anniversary. April 27th will be, of course, the start of our 18th year. We'll be back on the radio tomorrow, 4 o'clock Eastern and 1 o'clock Pacific. Enjoy your day. Happy Father's Day. Stay safe. See you on the radio tomorrow, guys. Thanks for